I'm doing, everything that my mom told me not to do as a kid, meeting people on the internet, meeting up with them in person, and then going out to strange places I haven't been before.
Today's guest is Alyce Bender, or Bender for short. She's a nature photographer, writer, educator, and adventurer. She's a Tamron USA Ambassador, contributing writer for the Journal of Wildlife Photography, and her work has been featured in group and solo gallery shows across the U.S., as well as in international publications from the UK to Japan. Bender leads photography adventures around the world to photographers of all levels, to help them explore and expand their personal vision and naturalist skills ethically. You can see more of Bender's work at Bender, Bender, photography.com. I'm so excited to share this conversation with you. Let's go. All right, so I'm now here with my good friend Alyce Bender, who ditched me in Texas to live in San Antonio and moved to even hotter Las Vegas. But you're not there now, so
No,
it's fine. Hardly ever home. So that's the thing.
I try for 1 week a month.
Isn't that good of you? I bet your dogs will miss you when you come back. Can you even leave the house?
Not when I first get back. No, they want to be my shadows. So yeah, it's hard. That is the hard part about this, is always having to leave the dogs behind.
Yeah. And they probably don't like you leaving either. So
they get a lot more table scraps when I'm away, so I don't think they're hurt too much.
Oh, I get it. Okay. All right. They get spoiled.
They get really spoiled with their aunt and uncle.
That's awesome. Well, you have really stepped up your wild adventuring, and I've been loving following all the stuff you're doing. Going to Alaska, you just went to Faroe Islands. I mean, I know you're all over the place, which is really fun. And so I've been looking forward to chatting with you because you have some really fun adventures. So you and I did a road trip. This is kind of how we got to know each other, right?
Yes.
That's not how we met, but we did a road trip 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago in 2021. And we road trip to Outsiders Conference in Kanab.
Yes.
That was fun.
Yeah.
It was cold.
It was cold. It was cold. But that was such a fun road trip because, we got several days in White Sands and then up towards Ship Rock outside of Farmington before cutting over to Knab, then kind of round tripped through Vegas and then back through Phoenix. And it was a great road trip. It was a good adventure.
It was a good adventure. We do like a good adventure. It's awesome. And so one of the things that I've noticed that you like to do, especially when you're scouting for future workshops, is just invite your friends to go along on potential trips. And so I think it was 2 years ago. I had already been to Caddo Lake once, but not in the fall. I think I went in the spring, and that was really lovely. So it is a natural lake. It's on the border. It borders East Texas and Louisiana. Is it called Caddo Lake on the Louisiana side? Do you know?
Yes. Yeah. It's in Caddo Parish when you get into Louisiana. But yeah, it's Caddo Lake. Texas's only natural lake, and they share it with Louisiana, as we've said. And it's the world's largest flooded cypress forest.
And it's awesome. And that's not, it is the world's largest, but that's not the only place that you can find these trees.
Yeah, they're kind of ubiquitous to the southeast swamplands, these bald cypress trees that are found in swampy areas like Caddo Lake, along the bayous of Louisiana, into Florida, the Everglades, Georgia, South Carolina. Yeah, so they're kind of everywhere, but this is the largest flooded forest of them.
And they're really amazing. What's really amazing is that it's this flooded forest. All of these cypress are dripping with this Spanish moss, and it's really an incredible place to go. And if you are like a nature
landscape photographer, it just offers so much because there's wildlife there, and it's just a kind of it's a unique place. So I really appreciate that you invited me along on one of your adventures, and I went with you 2 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it was great once again to just have another adventure with friends, but Caddo Lake in particular being such to me, growing up in Florida, it kind of reminds me of home. Not that I grew up in the swamps, but they were close enough. And I saw them on a regular basis. So being able to explore that and having the conditions that you do in fall, where you get the very cold mornings, but it hasn't been cold long enough, so the water's still warm, so you get all the mist and the beautiful cypress with all their uh, kind of moody and eerie moss with the bright colors of their needles changing. To be able to share that with friends and have people who understand what it is to suddenly wake up in the morning and go, oh, there's mist, let's go. Like, and you go running out of the cabin, like, and people don't think you're crazy. That's, it's helpful.
Right, exactly. Like, who goes out on the water? I was like, wait, we're going to go out on the water and it's like 30 something degrees. That's not really in my wheelhouse yet.
Or downpouring.
That or that, yeah, or that, because it could be that. There could be some really interesting conditions. One of the things that I really wanted to do on this podcast is just talk about like our emotions in some of our experiences. And one of the emotions that you listed was wonder.
Yes.
And I'm like, yes, because we were talking about this before we started recording. And I'm like, I feel like wonder goes along with this, like with Caddo Lake. And you were like super emphatic about it.
So for me, wonder is what essentially drives me. I think wonder to me is the emotion of curiosity. I feel like curiosity is not necessarily as much of an emotion as it is maybe a personality trait. But to go with that, the emotion that comes along with curiosity to me is wonder. And that has driven me since I was little. I just love being in nature because I'm always wondering what is going to happen next. What am I going to come across? What is there around the river bend?
Like literally.
Like I want to go know what is around the next bend, what is, over the next hill. And so that has driven me in so many ways to explore different locations and to go out, whether I'm able to do it with friends. But if I always waited for friends to be able to do it, I would never go anywhere necessarily. So oftentimes, especially for scouting, I do it by myself. The wonder comes from not only being able to be encompassed by scenes like what we experienced on Caddo Lake, where you're just sitting in a canoe out on a very still pond, mist rising around you, surrounded by these very stately, charismatic, unique trees that have this kind of moodiness about them. But in other cases, like when I'm up in Grand Teton, sitting next to the Snake River at Schwabacher's Landing, and you just have this vista in front of you that you don't know if there's going to be a fox or a moose coming out of the woods or a bear, but there's these grand peaks staring you in the face, reflected in the river. And to me, it just makes me also kind of feel very small. And there's this wonderment about feeling like you're part of something larger, such as the nature of Earth. So that's kind of where wonder kind of takes very different meanings depending on the situation, but I think it's all encompassed under that wonder, just always being out and having that sense within me. So
yes, awesome. Yeah, I'm always like, I feel small, and yet I wonder like more about what my role is in the universe as this little tiny person on this big ball, like in this universe.
yes,
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's so interesting to think about. So one of the experiences that really stands out for me with you is when Captain John. Is that his name?
Yes.
We went out that one early morning. Like we got to he doesn't do it anymore. I've called him and begged him. He
You
will
and me
not do
both.
it. You're right. I know. So I did not know what to expect, to be honest. And I think I don't even know where you found out, but you had arranged to do this boat trip with Captain John on his little
John boat.
John boat. His little John boat, like his literal John boat. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so crazy to arrive somewhere because I think maybe we had been out to the mill pond at the state park, but I don't know if I had been to like I hadn't been out in the early morning like that yet.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know personally what to expect. And here we are showing up like in the dark with random people. I love these kind of experiences because you don't know what to expect. It is that wonder, like, I wonder what we're going to do. I wonder what we're going to see.
I feel like there's a little bit of trust and faith that goes along with that. So in those situations, I'm doing, everything that my mom told me not to do as a kid, meeting people on the internet, meeting up with them in person, and then going out to strange places I haven't been before. So she's real proud of me. Yeah.
In the wilderness.
Yeah. Out into the woods with strangers met on the internet.
I know. I told my husband I'm going to do this, and he's like, who is this again? Where are you going?
Yeah.
And now he's like, okay, just turn on your GPS so I can track you. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
but this particular morning, you remember this morning, we have a lot of photos from this one morning because we go out in the boat and I mean, I honestly, I don't even know where on the lake or in like geographically this was. You probably do. You probably have a pin, but, I honestly, it's like that. I just followed my GPS here and I have no idea where I'm like literally like logically at. And then all of us hopping in this boat and we're freezing cold. I mean, I'm freezing cold.
Oh no, I'm pretty sure we all were. We all were. Because I think it was near freezing because there was frost on the deck because he was telling us to be careful getting in the boat.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And we had Aaron Martinez with us. Who else was with us? One more. Oh, you had another couple that came, right? Was that couple with you?
Yes, because we did have 5 in the boat. They were friends who had met up who happened to be in the area. And I said, "Do you want to come out?" Sure. They came out for a morning. Yeah.
So there you go. Alyce is like the wild adventure party planner. So
I'll take that title.
And I will join your party. I'll be like, hey, let's party. Okay. So Caddo Lake has all of these little they're almost like alleys, like those side alleys that you would go in between buildings somewhere. There are these little places like this that help you get to bigger parts of the lake. There's these little side alleys that go everywhere. And I'm going in the dark and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It's so creepy because it's dark and there's barely any light. And you can see the mist, like the lake fog is just coming up. And then we start going through it. Like it becomes like you could cut it almost.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And there was, times where it would be so thick, like you wouldn't be able to see the trees on either bank. But that's what's so great about Caddo at that time of year. Like that's what you go for. But that morning, it was kind of spectacular where we did get into this kind of where the river opened up a little bit more, this kind of tributary off of the lake kind of opened up just a little bit more. So we had more space between us and the trees. And as the fog is lifting, the sun is rising and it just starts casting these ribbons of light through the trees and into this mist, and everything starts it's like it's lighting on fire. And very moody, very beautiful, very wild.
It is like, for me, it was like that experience was like nothing I had ever seen before. You've seen fog before and been like on land or you've driven through it, but to be out in the water where it's literally like all around you coming up from the water, even if you're on a boat or wherever, there is a sense of like wonder and magic that's
Yes,
going on there.
for sure.
And then you look through the trees because you're moving really slowly because you can. This isn't like a fast moving adventure. You're moving and you're kind of looking out and there's because it is a forest and you're looking through, you're like, what's beyond there? What's beyond there? Oh my goodness, look at what just opened up over there. I remember going out into the wider lake and all of a sudden these trees just like started to appear. It's like you're watching a movie where, I don't know,
it's like a curtain that's just kind of slowly either being pulled up or dropped down, depending on which way the fog's moving or parting.
Right.
And I think that's the great thing about being out in nature, whether it's Caddo Lake, whether it's Grand Teton, whether it's, the Faroe Islands, Alaska, wherever it might be, your own backyard many times, that there's always something going on. It may not be as dramatic as, fog rising off of a lake to open up to scenes of these, moody character type trees. But I mean, I think there's so much that goes on around us in nature to explore and to wonder about. And to me, that's why I do what I do. And I get out and I want to see as much of it as I possibly can before I return to the earth. So
I think you are. I think you're out a lot experiencing. So one of the photos that you sent me are these birds. It's like in the snow and these birds are like fighting with each other. Is that in Japan?
So they aren't fighting. That is a courtship dance.
Oh,
they're courting each other.
Looks like they're fighting each other.
Well, I mean,
like a love fight.
Yeah. But those are endangered red-crowned cranes in the snow in northern Japan. One of my favorite places to be, especially in winter. And these cranes, I mean, they stand 5 feet tall and they do these elaborate courtship dances and posturing where the male and female have almost a choreographed dance that they do. And even though they mate for life, they do this each season as a way to reestablish their bonds. And so to me, to witness that in falling snow, I just have such a sense of peace and wonderment and this sense of just joy, just being able to be there and witness that and know that there's only so many people that have ever been able to see that. And to also be able to understand a bit more when we see cranes depicted in Asian art and literature and myth, so far as where the crane stands with longevity and relationship and things, and be able to see that in nature at work and understand where that sort of muse and that sort of symbology came from, because I can witness it with my own eyes.
I did not know all of that. But see, this is what you get when you go. Like I like to go find out more about the places I go or the things I'm going to do or photograph, because that helps me be a better human in the world. And it helps me understand so much around me and more. I mean, I don't know about you, but definitely more about myself.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I think each place that I travel ends up adding something to me and teaching me something about myself. And as you said, how to be a better human, in this crazy world we live in. I think that it's truly eye-opening. And I know that I am privileged in that I do get to travel so much. But I started out just traveling within my own county and within my own state. And I was very happy with that. And I still return to Florida on an annual basis at a minimum, if not more so, not only to see family, but also to revisit those places that really built and created the foundation for the love of nature, and to reconnect with those places and natural environments that were so influential. Yeah, I was going to say imposing, but influential
Did I get it?
To my younger years and my formidable years. So, and I love it. And each time there's wonderment to it, and there's a little bit of, oh, what am I going to see this time? Because as we all know, environments are changing. And so the environments that I grew up with have also been changing over these years. And so new animals, new plants, different species have now moved into the area that weren't there 15, 20 years ago when I was living there. It's been very interesting to see how they have changed as well. So each year, not only do I get that kind of familiar sense with them, but I still get that sense of wonder and surprise that comes with discovering something new because of the changes, even though I've been visiting them for almost 40 years now. So,
which is why we like to go back to the same places, because they do always change.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. If you go back to the same place and you're thinking it gets old, you got to look a little deeper.
Exactly.
See what there is.
Find the wonder again.
Find it. There is something different. You haven't seen it. You know, the interesting thing is, even if I go back to a place, I'm like, this hasn't necessarily changed, but I have. And I'm seeing it a little bit differently as well, which is also kind of a different way of looking at things. Well, because we are looking at things differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the other emotions you put on there is excitement. And I want to know, I want you to tell us, because I asked you before this, I'm like, what can you talk, like, what stories do you have? You're like, I have so many, which is why I love this format for this podcast, because we're going to have Alyce back. She doesn't know this yet, but I'm just telling you right now, Bender, you're going to come back at some point and tell us more.
Okay. I'm okay with this.
And she's always, I mean, you're always sharing your adventures online. So when is a time that you have felt like a lot of excitement? I don't know if it's like excitement from fear or excitement because you had to run somewhere. I feel like when you're chasing wildlife, it's a lot more exciting than just photographing rocks like I like to do.
Okay, so I do want to put this in context. When we say chasing wildlife, I'm not physically chasing them.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you. Because I have never sat at a blind with you photographing prairie hens before, and definitely not chasing the animals. Okay.
So there's the excitement that comes from going to a new place and, doing the research before going into the field, so far as, having an idea of what species I'm going to be encountering, and when I encounter them, what behaviors I want to be looking for, what the weather's going to be supposed to be doing, that sort of thing. There's that excitement of just getting to a new place and putting boots on the ground. But then there's just the general excitement that, like, no matter how many times I have a fox in front of me, I am always going to be excited, and I have to decide whether or not I'm just going to take the picture, I'm going to enjoy the moment. And then there's the 4-year-old in me who wants to go over and be like, I want to pet it. Like,
come over here so I can pet you.
I'm like, please come over here. Please come closer. Please come closer. So,
but we don't do that. We don't play with the wildlife.
No, we don't. We don't. I have I use between a 100 and a 600 millimeter lens, make sure they have their space. But like I said, the 4-year-old in me is always like, please come over. Please come over. I want to pet you.
Oh my gosh. It's awesome.
So, there is a certain amount of excitement that I get when an animal accepts my presence and allows me to observe them and photograph them as they go about their daily life, not stressed, just going about doing what they were going to be doing in the first place. They're just seeing me as something that's sitting there, not posing any danger. They're just going to do what they do, and I'm allowed to be there. Like, to me, that acceptance is so exciting for me. And it's such a privilege to be able to have that type of interaction. So I do get really excited when it comes to things like that. In Alaska, I was up in Nome for the solstice, the summer solstice, where there's no true darkness. Like technically the sun sets, but there's no real darkness. So, like I had this experience with this red fox while I was up in Alaska this last time. I was up there outside of Nome, Alaska. It was summer solstice, so it never really gets fully dark. The sun sets below the horizon, but you basically end up with 3 hours, 4 hours of what sunset into sunrise with no blue hour or anything. And me and a friend were up there, Dawn Wilson, and we were out on this road. We were looking for muskox. That was our big thing. We were looking for muskox because it's their calving season, so they'd have little babies with them, fluffy little babies. So we were looking for them, and we're driving down this dirt road, and this red fox comes over the hill, and we just stop. And in this beautiful light, where it's this it was right before the sun went down beyond the horizon. So it was this really beautiful golden sunset light. And we have this red fox coming over the road at us, over the hill. No fear. I mean, it's like 1:30 in the morning, which sounds really weird to be talking about golden hour at 1:30 in the morning, but that's just kind of how it is up there at that time of year. But we were able to photograph as he just came walking right on past us. He tried hunting a few ptarmigan, which are these little kind of small chicken-like birds that are out there on the tundra. Took a shot at one of those and then just walked on past us, kind of went around. No fear, he knew we were there. Didn't really matter. We kept our distance. He just kind of walked on by. But I mean, it was just such an amazing encounter that it's times like that you have to wonder about your place in nature, because I'm out there on this far, far western coastline area of Alaska, out in the middle of nowhere. Like, this Nome is only accessible by boat or plane. Like, there are no roads. You can't drive there from the lower 48. Like, you can't get there from Anchorage except by plane. So, like, far wilderness. And you have this animal that just is accepting of you and your presence and just gets on with life because it's 1:30 in the morning and he's like, man. And we saw him yawn several times. I'm like, I swear, this summer sun, even the wilderness is like, oh, we could really use some sleep. But they continue and do what they do. But it's that acceptance and that wonder of, okay, well, what are we going to see next? That kind of just keeps driving me on and makes me want to see even more.
That's amazing. I can't believe you went out there.
I'm going again next year if anybody wants to join me. So.
Thank you, Bender. I have really loved being part of your adventures, but also watching your adventures. And you inspire me to go to more wild places. So, yes.
Well, you let me know. You're always welcome.
I will, but I don't think I could sit still in a bird blind for a long time. I just don't think I'm that girl for you.
I will say most of my stuff is not done in a blind, because I also have a hard time sitting still because I'm always wanting to know what's around the next bend. So,
okay.
Yes. So most of my stuff is not done in a blind.
Noted.
We keep it moving. We want to see as much as we can.
Yes, exactly. So in that vein, tell us what you have going on. What are you excited about doing? What would you like to invite people to do with you?
So I'm very excited to be back out in the field, especially after the last several years of things kind of having slowed down. And now we are opening up both domestically and internationally. So I finally got back to the Faroe Islands just a few weeks ago. And that was something I had planned to do in 2020. So the fact that I was finally able to get back there and do that scouting trip, I'm super excited for next summer to be able to offer a birding and landscape photo adventure in the Faroe Islands. Super excited because me and a very good friend of mine, he's Scottish, his wife is Faroese. He's been exploring the Faroes for over a decade, and we found some really sweet spots that are kind of off the tourist trail. And so I'm just really excited to show people the Faroe Islands, and especially during that time of year when all the seabirds, including Atlantic puffins and gannets and oyster catchers, have their little babies running all over the fields. So I'm really, really excited about that particular trip, as well as the gnome trip, so that hopefully that fox will come back and see us again.
I hope so.
I hope so too. But yeah, so I would like to invite everybody to go to my website at abenderphotography.com and take a look and see what trip. I have trips all the way from Florida and Texas to the Faroe Islands and Alaska and Japan. So there's something there for probably everybody. If you have questions, reach out. I'm always willing to talk.
Yes, she is. And I will say you can also sign up for her newsletter if you want to know about anything that's going to be announced or any updates with anything. And she also, by the way, this is my little plug for you. Bender also writes really lovely articles for publications, and she will send those out in her newsletter. So if you write anything, people can be notified of that. So awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you at Caddo Lake because I know I'm going to see you there this year. You and I both have workshops, tours,
Yep,
Minds in the Scape,
absolutely.
Whatever. We're all going to be on the lake.
It's going to be an adventure.
It absolutely is. And we are going to cross our fingers that we get some really amazing foggy, misty days.
Yes.
So crossing our fingers. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Lovely to chat with you. I'm going to hold you to coming back and chatting with me again.
I will absolutely do that. Thank you so very much, Bree, for the invite to come on and talk on your new podcast. I'm super excited to hear all the stories that are going to be coming out through this podcast.
Me too. All right, go have more adventures and we will talk to you. Come with me on my next adventure. Be a wild woman and join me on one of my small group photography escapes in places like the cypress swamps of East Texas or White Sands, New Mexico. Go to wildwomanphotography.com for all the details. While you're there, you can check out featured wild women, episode transcripts, and more. Oh, and I'd love for you to support this podcast and all these incredible wild women in photography by leaving a review or sharing with a friend. Thank you so much for listening.